All right, I think we can get started. All right, good morning, everyone. I wish. Good afternoon, everyone. I will call today's planning commission meeting for August 6, 2024 to order. And I would ask that the clerk would call us. We're not logged in.
No,
This is my cue. Once
Okay.
again,
almost.
almost. Well, at least I can get my good evening straight. It's like, all right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call tonight's August 6, 2024 Planning Commission meeting to order. And I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Locke. Here. Commissioner Heller.
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes. Here. Commissioner Slater.
Here.
Commissioner Truitt is absent. Commissioner Mirabella.
Here.
We have one.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments that are not related to tonight's hearing? All right, moving forward. Let's see, we have approval of our minutes. We don't have minutes today, is that correct? Gotcha. All right, an administrative oversight allows us to move right forward, I guess, to the public hearing. So let's see, I guess that starts with you, Bryce, is that right? The clerk reads the criteria. I've been gone for a month. I apologize here if I'm rusty.
This is a public hearing to consider case number PUD SUB PAR UGA ADJ 2401 for property located at the 700 to 800 blocks of Creekside Drive Southeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, chapters 210.025D, Plan Unit Development and Subdivision Tentative Plan, 205.005D, Partition Tentative Plan, 200.025D and E, Urban Growth Preliminary Declaration, and 250.005D2, Class 2 Adjustment. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Planning Commission, the Historic Landmarks Commission, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues related to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Planning Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Okay, good evening, planning commissioners, especially for the city of Salem Planning Division. I'm here tonight to present the staff report for the proposed development for this evening. It's a consolidated case that has several components. It includes the planning and development subdivision petition, urban growth preliminary declaration, and adjustment. That's for property, as Jennifer mentioned, in the 700 block at Creekside Drive Southeast. So in terms of the components of the application, it includes first a 2-parcel partition, which takes an existing portion of the existing 13.37 acre property as part of the fairway of the Creekside Golf Course, and it divides it into 2 parcels. One parcel would remain as a fairway for the golf course, and the other one would be further divided as the proposed planning subdivision that's included. There is, with the partition, there's a class 2 adjustment to increase the maximum allowed lot depth for the parcel 1, which would be the parcel that retains the fairway, and then there's the planning parcel 2, the partition divided into 4 proposed lots that you see in the materials before you tonight. There's also a urban growth preliminary declaration, which is process to provide public facilities for the city's master plans to serve sewer, water, street, storm. So in terms of the location of the property, it's 13.37 Creekside Drive. It's currently a fairway of the Creekside Golf Course, as I mentioned. So yes, there's frontage on Creekside Drive to the south, and also Crooked Stick to the east. So that property is shown here, orange shaded color. And so it's this 13.37 property. terms of the comprehensive plan designation for the property, currently it's split designated with single family residential on the eastern half of it and development residential on the western half. In terms of zoning, the entire property is zoned residential agriculture, but in the residential agriculture zone is pretty much a zone that is the single family residential zone. Its property is brought in from the county is the same as what we're doing. It's giving this property. So it is, essentially it's the same thing as a single family residential zone. In terms of the urban service area requirement for this, because this has an urban growth preliminary declaration, that's because a portion of the property is outside of the urban service area boundary. So for the fact here, you can see the shaded area on the eastern half. This is the urban service area. Facilities for water, sewer, storm available in the western half. So that's what association with this application. And conditions of the subdivision required facilities served. In terms of the existing site conditions, again, the property is 13.7 acres in size. Sorry about that, so 13.37. There are several trees, on the property. There's trees that are in this area site, which is included in the petition, but not in the PUD subdivision. The portion of the property that covers the PUD subdivision, it has 10 trees that are located on the southwest portion, the west portion of the property here. The tree conservation plan was submitted in conjunction with the application. All of those trees are in preservation. Because these trees here are included in the partition application, that partition application creates parcel 1, which accommodates these trees, and it's not, and that parcel is not so residential development. That's design. It's part of the golf course fairway. There's no tree reservation requirements associated with that parcel. And so these trees aren't tree conservation, just the ones on the street side. And in terms of resource issues on the site, there's a bar is present on the property. The bar, however, slight hazards, susceptibility points, the green polygon areas that are shown overlaying the property here. Those are 2 mapped line slight hazard susceptibility points. So take and add to it the land point value, the proposed activity point value of that slight hazard. So that results in a 5-point total, and then it's a moderate slight hazard risk. And so there's a condition. So if you watch an assessment for potentially that in terms of the partition itself, so again, it creates 2 parcels. Parcel 1 is the largest parcel. Parcel 2 is the smaller parcel. The smaller parcel that we've provided is 3.37 acres in size, and the larger fairway parcel is 10.64. There is only one adjustment that's needed with this application, and that is an adjustment to increase the maximum lot depth. So under the code, we have minimum lot depths, minimum lot widths, and minimum lot areas, but for residential, we also have maximum standard to ensure that properties aren't to break necessarily law. These current situations where it's making streets in there, serve the development. But as you see in the staff report, staff believes that the requested adjustment to exceed the maximum lot depth meets the standards of the code because of the purpose that the speaking scope for, which is the continuous golf course fairway. So staff did review the petition for conformance with all of the applicable criteria for 205 for petitions. The adjustment criteria included in chapter 250 and the standards of the RA zone, which are the law standards, except for lot depth, which it didn't meet. Adjustment was requested for, and then all of our applicable standards. And those are identified in the staff report on page 20, and the proposed petition does conform to those criteria, and staff does recommend approval of that petition. Then that brings us to the second phase of the law. That's the further division of that parcel 2, which was the 3.37 acre parcel. That proposal proposes to divide parcel 2 into 10 lots. So we have 11 lots, 1 through 11 here, front on Creekside. Drive southeast, and manner is very consistent with what you see to the east of Creekside Drive and also to the west of Creekside Drive. These lots in the PUD are proposed to be served by a private street, built Creekside Drive, make a loop around back here, collapse. And these lots, the way they're configured in the topography of the site, vehicle and driveway access will be taken from the private street rather than Creekside Drive, because there is a change in topography here. And proposed residential units are intended to be 1-story, integrated flat level. See the street. The private street needs to go out at the top of the topography of the site rather than being down where Creekside is, where you have to dig into the site disturbance. So 11 lots are proposed to be created, served on a private street. There's also within 2,100 square feet of private space that will include that is adjacent to fair. In the PUD, there are no minimum lot size or dimension standards for the planning elements. There are minimum maximum density requirements that propose 11 lots, and the potential for up to 2 units on each lot does fall well below the maximum density that would otherwise would be allowed in the RS zone based on the sizes of the lots. They're back in 2003, when this phase of the planning and development was originally approved, which was phase 2 of Creekside Estates, staff had approved a variance to the street width and improvement along Creekside Drive. So as part of that variance, there was an approval to allow the north side of Creekside Drive to be developed without sidewalk. And so that exists today. So the current configuration of Creekside Drive was approved in the past through the land use process. The proposal does not include the extension of sidewalks on the north side of Creekside. There's a condition 14 that requires that there be connections to the existing sidewalk system. So there are sidewalks on the south side of Creekside Drive. There are also sidewalks on the north side of Creekside Drive. They stop a little bit short, they end at the nearest lot to the east here, and there's a gap. So condition 14 requires the construction of linking sidewalk to the existing sidewalk on the north side across the private street. Goes to private street on the sidewalk on the south side of the Creekside Drive. It's 5 feet in width. It goes all the way around the street, back down. Then apron sidewalk approaches to the landing on the north side, as well as on the south side, required sidewalk connection to the clubhouse drive. So we feel that for comments included in the path that you received the American Homeowners Association was indicating that the north side of Creekside Drive was kind of a missing link in the pedestrian circulation system in the area. And we wanted to recognize tonight that was an existing approval that allowed that, and then we feel that the proposed sidewalk on the north side or the south side of the new street development provides that same pedestrian benefit, because it perhaps people around to the fronts of the lots and then back down and provides connections to the existing sidewalk infrastructure. In terms of the potential future development of lots, if they were to be developed for 2 units on lot, we submitted potential floor plans and elevations that you see here, and they're 1-story in height to maintain character with the area. And comments that have been submitted by the HOA wanting to see architectural review, compliance with the rest of the Homeowners Association. So that would be something that staff can condition specifically. But I think that could be something that the applicant could agree to. So you just go through a different process of the HOA. City's not party to private CCNRs, and we can't enforce those. So in terms of what we can require in terms of 2 parties agreeing to do certain things, we have to kind of keep the conditions to what is needed to conform to the applicable standards and criteria. In terms of the PUD subdivision review, it's been reviewed for compliance as identified in the staff report for all the applicable standards of the PUD ordinance, and there are several conditions of approval that have been recommended, and included with or recommended for approval with this development to ensure it meets the standards. If served by infrastructure, impacts are minimized to the extent possible. So those conditions of approval, there's 20 of them in the original staff report, and there's an additional 21st condition examined by development services. So those are identified in the decision and recommend staff report, obviously. And this slide is kind of goes over. It's pretty summary of this. So before maintenance of the common facilities, the open space, and the private streets. So, Common Storm Association has a desire to, because this development is in within Creekside, we'll be using private streets in Creekside Drive and others to get to the development. There is a desire to see the proposed development, pay their share of the costs of maintenance of those streets, because there will be, impact traffic on them and burden placed on those streets. So condition number 4 requires lots 1 to 11 of the proposed PUD subdivision to be included within the homeowners association and CCNRs for Creekside Estates to for maintenance and operation of those private streets. And this condition is similar to a condition that's placed on previous subdivision to the east off Crooked State, and it ensures that the new development will be using these private streets will be part of the HOA for maintenance and responsibility of those private streets and pay for them, pay their fair share. There's also another condition, condition 3, that requires the private street within the new street development within the plan development to be in the open space to be subject to HOA and CCNRs for that specific development. Not with this condition, we anticipate that the open space and the private street will be subsumed or taken in by the rest of the Creekside Estates HOA. So in that respect, condition 3 ensures that the private open space and the private street that is specific to this development will be subject to the HOA and CCNRs for its protection. Development will also have to be part of the greater Creekside Estates HOA to ensure that these are assessed for continuing operation of those streets as well. So there are two HOAs potentially. And then there were a number of conditions, conditions 5 through 13 and 18 that deal with various requirements to provide stormwater, sewer, and water utilities to serve the site. Then there's conditions 2 and 15 through 17 to do with the construction of the private street building. Originally, the plan had it originating with from 22 feet on east and west end where it comes off of Creekside Drive, where it gets up to the northern portion where it's parallel to Creekside, widened out to 26. However, to ensure that there's adequate width on the street by parallel on-street parking, the condition of approval was recommended to widen the width from 26 to 28 feet. So that allows for allowing the parallel on-street parking on the north side of the street and two-way traffic on the private street. And in addition to that, there would be a sidewalk on the south side, a 4-foot wide landscape strip on the north side, street trees. And then, as mentioned before, there's the sidewalk connectivity improvements that were required in condition number 14 and 9 to propose new sidewalk to the existing sidewalk infrastructure on the north side and the south side of Creekside Drive. And then conditions 19 and 20 deal with requirements to submit a geological assessment potentially to a technical report based on this panel. That's for study. In terms of public comments, the property is located within the South Gateway Neighborhood Association. As the date of staff reporting this evening, no comments have been received from the Neighborhood Association. The property is within the Creekside Estates Homeowners Association. And we did receive comments from the Homeowners Association, and these were included in the packet. And so there were several comments identified, several issues and concerns that they wanted to have addressed. And those range from several of them deal with impacts of the proposed development of private streets that are controlled in a way. We want to make sure that use and wear and tear on the streets is going to be addressed in some fashion. So that's why the staff is recommending 2 conditions, or 1 condition, condition 4, to require them to be part of the association for that means construction. We're also concerns about with the required utility improvements that are going to be required within the private streets in order to serve the development. How will the streets be repaired, put back to your condition that they are today? There was, concern about the additional, a couple of the additional, having more additional access points on the Creekside Drive, and there was a desire to, see to allow the additional access sessions and some agreement to agree to some other requirements that the HOAs want to see. There's concern about restricting adequate parking, serve the development, which I think road, parking on the north side of the development, and also parking on off-street parking on the lots themselves is with the floor plans of provided those include garages and there would be driveways leading to the garages. So there was a combination of on-site parking and on-street parking on the north side of Villa Loop. And then responsibilities for maintenance of the private street and open space within the proposed development, and whether condition to deal with that, it requires the development to have its own HOA and CCNRs to specifically deal with maintenance of their own private facilities. And concerns about the sidewalk, something our side, pretty sidewalk, again, that was a situation. Originally, redevelopment will provide a sidewalk on the side, and that is what for pedestrians. And we did receive also a couple comments from surrounding property owners prior to the meeting tonight, and they were, had echoed the same concerns generally of HOA. And then there was a concern also that the units fee or the lots be limited to 1 unit per lot. And limiting, dwelling unit or the unit, the lots to 1 dwelling unit per lot is something that the city can't require because under House Bill 2001, which was developed by the state, doesn't allow any CCNRs regulations to restrict the development of middle housing lots if those lots allow for single family. So we can't, put a stronger limits the lots to just single family. So requiring the state. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the planning commission approve the proposed development as recommended in both August 6th staff report, the original staff report, and also the supplemental staff report that had the additional condition 21 that dealt with the requirement for the applicant to pay the loan reimbursement district fee at the time of building residential lot, and that loan reimbursement district fee is to address the establish a funding source eventually to finish the construction of loan over all the way down to it's the street South Wellesley. From all the way down to Reese, yes, Reese, yeah. So because right now there's a lack of a bridge crossing Dory Creek, there's a long section of the road that's constructed in order to serve the entire area. So that fee is established for that. So with that, I would include
Thank you, Bryce, for a very fluent presentation. Vice President Heller.
How many, Bryce,
Vice President Heller, could you speak into the microphone?
how many lots or dwellings are now in this HOA?
and then what?
In the HOA?
In the HOA?
Yeah,
I don't have the total numbers.
thank you.
Thank you. Question. Commissioner Bob.
Related to the streetscape of the north side of Creekside, I have a rude questions.
We are. Opinions too, yeah, take a moment.
So I think, I think the continuation of the sidewalk along the north side of Creekside, really would be a very important addition to this development. Having sidewalks on each side of any street is a way to provide more accessible and aesthetically pleasing, pedestrian friendly and safe access around these developments. In addition to that, I know they're not just based on the topography of the site, there's probably going to be a fair bit of cut and fill along that street. And I'm wondering how that's going to be handled from a landscape perspective and what the significance of that will be. I know it would reduce the lot depths a bit to enhance that, but I'm a bit concerned about just having kind of slice out of what is effectively a pretty barren street.
Well, I would point out it is very similar to zoom back here into it before greater farm perspective here. But if you look at Inverness Drive and Inverness Court to the west, you know, as you go west on Creekside Drive, it's, you know, these properties are going to be flat, easily accessible from the road, not a lot of topography change. But as you pass, you know, the western boundary of this lot here, and you go further west, the topography does increase, and then it just, you know, maintains, you know, pretty much all the way to the west. And so when you see, you know, what the streetscape looks like further to the west, this is all sidewalk on the south side, no sidewalk on the north side. These homes face Inverness, and then, you know, and there's sidewalks on the cul-de-sac. So the proposed layout here is really mimicking, consistent with what has been established to the west. And so, you know, if there were to be sidewalks placed, there would, you know, like, there have to be more cuts into the hillside there. Whereas I think, in that, and that would be better, you know, addressed to speak to this, but, you know, when by allowing the street to go, you know, the loop street allows for the elevating of the home street up, you know, put more on the top, the top of the hill, right? You know, so any kind of improvements along the Creekside view of the street bar, more kind of fill, it will lead to, you know, some, you know, grading at the top, but you know, by having, you know, additional width for sidewalk and potentially landscape strip that would require that's potentially retaining walls.
Yes. So we are or we are not requiring landscaping along the north side of Creekside?
It's an existing condition that was approved through the previous, you know, PUDs. We did not require any, you know,
I was just gonna add, so along Creekside itself, there would be street trees in place of where the sidewalk would be now. So there would be sidewalk on the south side of the street, and then on the north, there would be a requirement to plant street trees. And then along the loop of the street, it would have sidewalk on one side, and then again, mimic street trees on the side where there's no parking. So there would be an addition of landscaping in lieu of sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Okay.
And in order it doesn't require cutting the sidewalk.
Okay, and then my next question is, for these lots, is there a maximum number of 2 units per dwelling, or do these allow for the maximum like 4 per residential lot?
No, you know, so under House Bill 2001, wherever a single family dwelling is allowed, you have to allow a duplex. And in this case, when you get above two family, you get into 3 and 4 family, you know, the law allows us to treat them a little bit differently. We don't have to allow, you know, 3 and 4 in the same respect as we do single family. So if in order to do 3 or 4, the planning development application would have to come in with the location of the triplex, the 4plex, you know, shown on the site plan, the elevations provided, they're binding essentially. And in this case, since it's only, you know, 2 family, we have to treat it the same as single family. There is a requirement of binding, you know, floor plans and elevations that lock the developer in any one housing type, or 3 and 4 would, so you can't 3 and 4 ever, unless they were to.
Other questions? I have a question or two. Specifically following up on Commissioner Fogg's question about the sidewalk. So just so I understand, there will be a new sidewalk at Valley. So from what I look at the bottom of the screen, we've got, is that Creekside?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is.
And currently, neither side of that street has a sidewalk.
The south side is.
The south side currently does.
Yes.
Okay. So.
On Creekside it is.
But there are gaps, and so on the plan, you can see there's a blue gap in the south corner of the screen where the south side has a gap of sidewalk there. So there would be a condition to add sidewalk along that gap, and then the remainder has sidewalk. And then along the north side, again, there's a gap. So there would be a condition that they construct a gap to connect the 2 blue segments to the edge of the sidewalk.
I guess I can wait till the homeowners make their comments and ask me a question, but just so we're really talking about adding a second sidewalk to that street, is that
On
right?
Creekside, right.
Thank you, that was helpful. 1 or 2 other questions. I'm confused now about the homeowner association situation. I understood in the beginning of the materials that we could not require people to join a homeowners association. And now I see that there's a requirement to join a homeowners association. Can you walk me through the differences that must
Yeah, sure,
exist?
excuse me. The difference is the use of a private facility in streets that are owned by HOA as opposed to just public streets. In terms of requiring them to be part of an HOA in terms of what the buildings look like and then the units to be in a lot, those are, are private in order to ensure that the new development will be paying its fair share for the wear and tear that's on streets, that's something we can, condition as a way to mitigate the impact that in terms of how it looks or how many units that starts to run foul of Bill 2001.
So would there be multiple homeowners associations that would exist and people are joining one homeowners association that covers just the common area or the road, and then there's a second homeowners association or a third homeowners association that might exist that they don't have to join?
The way that it's structured under the conditions right now, condition number 4 would require the development be part of the overall Creekside HOA for maintenance of the existing streets within the association. So Creekside Drive and all the private facilities, so they'd have to be part of it. Condition 3 requires this development to have a separate HOA that's specific to the maintenance of the open space and the private road in those facilities within this development. And staff, we're not going to put a condition on approval to obligate the entire Creekside development to maintain and be part of the maintenance of the private streets and open space for this development. So this development is within Creekside. It needs to be part of the HOA to maintain private streets that it needs to use. The rest of the Creekside development may not need to use that private street or the open space. And so the HOA specific to this development is to ensure that now that can, if there's an agreement between the parties to make things simpler and require, the private open space and the private facilities, the private street, serving this development to be part of the overall, Creekside Estates HOA, and everybody who is, living here as a member of the HOA and could even use that would be another way to address it.
Let me just follow up with one question then. So if I buy one of these units and I have to join an HOA to pay my fair share of the common space, which makes a lot of sense, then do all the other requirements of the HOA then apply to me? I guess that's why I'm asking if there are separate HOAs.
It all depends on how the agreement is written.
So we could then be requiring someone to join.
We wouldn't be
Full
mandating if there was an agreement between the parties to have subject to the architectural review requirements, they would be able to do that. We don't enforce the architectural review requirements of the HOA. It would be something that the parties are free to subject themselves to.
I think I'm gonna end my question with that. I don't really understand that. All right, any other questions? I believe now the applicant is up.
Good evening, my name is Brandy Dalton. I'm with Multi-Tech Engineering. I'm the land use consultant here tonight representing the applicant. I also have a team of other professionals with me tonight to help answer any questions that you might have. Bryce did a thorough job going through everything, so there's not a lot for me to say, and I'll leave a lot of it for rebuttal because I know there's several people here who want to speak. Bryce went over the partition criteria, the subdivision PUD criteria, the UGA middle housing standards as well, and how we're compliant with that and allow them to do that. With your packet, you have all my legal findings, you have the site plans as well that show how we meet all the criteria for all the applications that have been presented tonight. We have been working with staff for a little while on this, so we do understand the conditions of approval. There's a couple things that I'm gonna have Natalie, Janie is here with me tonight. She's the project engineer, so she's gonna talk about a couple of the conditions of approval tonight as well, but for the other ones, we understand the conditions of approval that deal with HOA and the CCNRs, the sidewalks, the improvements, all of those things. And we also have someone from the applicant's legal team here that's been working with HOA and the developer as well. So if you have questions about that, I have not been personally working with the HOA, so I don't know exactly all that's discussed. So you might want to ask questions of as well. Bryce did talk about rental housing. And the PUD consists consists of 11 lots that, the developer's looking at being luxury condos, duplexes on, so there'll just be 2 per lot. I showed how we submitted elevations and floor plans. Our developer tonight, if you wanted to see, he does have color renderings available. If that's something that you're interested in seeing there, he's here to show those as well. But with that, we're here to answer any questions. We feel we've proven that we meet all the criteria to move forward with the approval. And so with that, I'll open it up for any questions. But I'd also like to have Natalie and Jenny come first to discuss a couple of questions. That's all right.
Good evening, Commissioners, Natalie Janney, I'm a civil engineer at Multitech Engineering. As Brandy mentioned, we've been working on the development of this site for a while. Part of the application process, as you're aware, is the preliminary drainage report that was submitted. And as is mentioned in the packet, we did also submit a design exception request because the proposed design doesn't meet the city's design standards outright, but a design exception request is allowed in that process. I just bring that to your attention because I would like to propose a change to condition 10 that we meet the requirements of SRC 71 and the Public Works Design Standards or obtain an approved design exception. The staff report mentioned that the design exception request wasn't approved at this time, but we'd like to have more time to work with development services and engineering to work through that. There are, as was mentioned, there's topography on this site. The street as it connects, the lows for this project are on both those street connections. And the street coming down there is 10% on one side and 12 on the other side. So it makes it really hard to put a flat facility on 12% slope. So we just need a little more time to work through that. And I'm concerned that the condition as written doesn't allow for that flexibility through the design exception process. So that was the one condition I wanted to bring to your attention. So happy to answer any other questions.
Please, Vice President Howard.
Thank you. I don't understand what you're talking about in condition 10.
Okay.
What do you want to do?
So it says prior to final plat approval, provide an engineered stormwater design meeting the requirements of SRC and the Public Works Design Standards. And then right there, I'd like to say, or obtain an approved design exception request to accommodate new impervious surfaces in the private street and future impervious surfaces on all.
Okay, but exactly, what are you thinking about? What would be your proposal?
So I was gonna try and avoid like nerding out on the stormwater parts with you, but since you
Please do.
so the city's design standards require what's called green stormwater infrastructure to the maximum extent feasible, which basically means all the hard surface has to go through a green facility. So that's like a vegetated facility that has growing media that the water can infiltrate down through, and then you can either infiltrate into the native soil or you can collect it to an approved discharge. There is stormwater available in the street to go either way, so we have a place for it to go. My concern is if the street is 12% down, I can't fit a flat facility on 12%. I have to put a check dam in every 2 feet in order to meet the city's design standards, and I just don't think that like fish ladder effect is really what, I don't really feel like that meets the intent. I'd like to be able to have that discussion with staff more. So what we were proposing was to use a proprietary engineered system. They're called context storm filters. It's a filter that goes in the ground that the water goes through and then it runs through. This would be the ZPG filter was the one we were doing, but it cleans the water. It's a filter that cleans the water before it exits. So the water's still getting cleaned. It's just not getting cleaned with a green stormwater infrastructure facility.
Do you have a follow-up question?
No.
Are there any other questions? All right, if not, I guess at this point we'll move to public comments. And Fred has a list. I will. All right. Thank you. I guess, is there anyone from the neighborhood association that would like to speak? No, okay. In that case, I have is it Nanette Forster?
Commissioner Slater.
Yeah, please. You have 3 minutes. There's a green light. Oh, I'm sorry. It's that kind of night. I apologize. Go ahead. I thought.
Hi, my name is Margaret Vanderboom. I'm an attorney with Sefco Griggs, and I'm the attorney for the applicant. I thought maybe prior to moving into the HOA testimony, we could give an update regarding discussions that we've had with the HOA to kind of maybe drive the comments to being a little bit more productive, so we're not spending time on things that have already been discussed.
How much time? Go ahead.
So, the developer for this project is Don Lay Homes, and he and me as the applicant's representative met with 2 of the HOA board members yesterday regarding the comments that they had submitted into the record. And we had a really productive conversation, and I think we were able to kind of address the majority of the concerns. One thing that we want to add in addition to Natalie's revision is a modification of condition 3, which is which requires that additional HOA for the maintenance of Villa Loop. Based on our conversations with the HOA, and we're still in preliminary talks, we believe that the majority of the maintenance obligations will be part of Creekside HOA because that's the HOA's preference. And we would just like to make sure that that flexibility is available and not limited by the conditions of approval. So where the condition of approval 3 requires an additional HOA for the maintenance of the loop, we would like to propose that the applicant either moves forward with developing its own HOA or provides evidence to the city that maintenance obligations are being met as part of its joining of Creekside HOA. As Bryce mentioned earlier, Creekside has had a development where a modification like this has been made previously over off of Crooked Stick, where we did end up having all of those new homes subject to the full range of Creekside current CCNRs. That's what we're proposing for this application as well. These homes will become part of Creekside HOA. And the reason for doing that is we believe that this is part of that same community, and it's the desire of both the developer and the HOA to have these units be integrated into Creekside HOA and not have these creations of kind of island communities within the larger HOA. So while there will be potentially additional assessments or kind of things along those lines to address the common maintenance, these units will be part of Creekside HOA, subject to the architectural review committee. And kind of meet the standards as set forth by Creekside HOA. So we're fully intending to work with the HOA to develop a plan for how we properly integrate this and make sure that those maintenance obligations are properly addressed and that all of kind of the standards of the community are upheld by these units. When we were on site yesterday, you could really see the topography and the slant up from Creekside Drive. And one of the additional reasons for not having sidewalks along that side is because it significantly limits the availability of developable land. And for these types of units that are single floor units, we want to make sure that there is adequate space and accessibility. So that's one of the other reasons that we're not adding a sidewalk along the north side of Creekside Drive. We just want to emphasize that in addition to the pedestrian connectivity standards being addressed and meeting the applicable approval criteria, there is a logic behind not having an additional sidewalk along the north side of Creekside Drive there. And I think the HOA understood that kind of that part of the rationale will kind of fit in well with the community while maintaining developable land. And then the kind of final thing that I wanted to address is that there are other developments like this within Creekside HOA where there are condominiums and they have some of their own standards that apply to their particular project. And this is why we want some of that flexibility to negotiate those CCNRs between the parties. We want to make sure that there are standards in place, but there is kind of this need to have some creativity around what these agreements look like. So again, we are committed to developing within the standards of the community and working with the surrounding homeowners to address concerns. But we've come a long way since our initial application was submitted and just wanted to make sure that that was captured in the record.
Thank you. All right. I think now, Ms. Forster, you are up. So you have 3 minutes, and
Oh,
let me
okay.
start flashing at 2 minutes. I think you'll be a warning.
I don't have much to say, because if Creekside, if these lots do become part of the HOA, that I think would help. My thoughts was parking and how all like the clubhouse drive comes up and all these loops, the villa loops go around, you know, we walk every day. And you know, sometimes it's like, and we drop right by that. And you think about, that's gonna be at least 2 adults in each of the lots times 2, because they're duplexes. And then if they have teenagers, I'm wondering, I wanna be sure there's room for all the cars. And you mentioned that there was parallel parking, that's fine, but because if you take all those people that are scrunched, because if you go down Creekside Drive now, you know, like in the evening or something, everybody's all buckled in, they're all got their cars put away, there's anything there. But if we get how many more cars parking in that one little spot and then going in and out every day, I kind of worry. And then what about the 2 lots that are over there that really are undeveloped? Are they gonna be developed the same way so that they'll have plenty of parking? That's my question, my concern. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the only name that I had. Are there other people that signed up? Maybe have a different sheet or someone else? Please. Oh yeah, come on down. Be sure to give us your name and address. And is Mr. Cowan here?
Nope, it's not.
No, he's not. Okay. Is there any other officer from the homeowners association that's here? Okay. One of you might want to consider coming up and providing some representation about how you think the negotiations have been going. It might be in your interest, but that's up to you. Please, name and address,
Yes,
please.
my name is Bruce Thompson. I live at 764 Creekside Drive, which happens to be directly across from the planned development. I stand to support it. I believe, having seen the letter from the HOA, which covered all of my concerns about how it's being developed, having heard now from the lawyer and also from the developer that they are reaching agreement. I know that our HOA had talked about the potential of actually managing the new street if that agreement comes to pass. But as a whole, I believe it will do a positive thing for our neighborhood. That particular side of that hillside is undeveloped, always looks a bit scrappy. So as a resident who lives there, having that finished and looking nice and planted, I think will go a long ways. It adds some additional folks to our HOA if that all comes to fruition. And so I think the coverage of both the streets and their additional, the concern about the parking, as long as they park in the same fashion that everyone else is required to, that there's adequate parking for the cars. I think this would be a very positive move for our neighborhood. So I stand to support.
Thank you. Please. And again, provide your name and address for the board, please.
My name is Steve Forrester. I live at 877 Creekside, which is far away from this town. Sunnyside. The only thing that bothered me a little bit is you've got the one-way stop that comes down the Creekside of this left-hand side here. And then a freeway stop just a little bit further away. I don't know why the developer just didn't take one house over the right left-hand side and move it to the right-hand side and become a simple four-way stop. That's it.
Thank you for your
Based
comment.
on, it's history on Creekside, two intersections. 50 feet apart.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Please.
Good evening, my name is Maria McRae and I live at Creekside. I'm also on the HOA board. And I want to thank you all for allowing us to talk and to see what the differences are. And I appreciate your comments that you made. I am also very, I haven't heard about the get together a couple of days ago. So that was new to me. I'm appreciative of your help and getting together with us. That's really nice. I am concerned about the street, the parking, the sidewalks. The homes on Inverness are considerably higher up than the ones down here. These are high, but not half as high as the ones on Inverness. So there was absolutely no way you could have a sidewalk on those streets on Creekside or on that far end of Creekside. I am also concerned about the sewage drains there, making sure that they are in compliance with everything and up to the green specs that we'd like to have. We are very friendly and environmentally protective in our area and want to see everything nicely done. I am kind of concerned about the two homes on this side. I don't see a street access there, unless they're going to be using Creekside. So where are the sidewalks going to be up on the top? And the driveways for those two, I'm just kind of concerned about that whole area. I do want us, hopefully, that you're not making a final decision here. Hopefully having a little bit more time so that we can continue the conversations that have been going on. And I do appreciate all of the work that you have done. It's really been helpful. Thank you so much. So those are just my two main concerns, traffic, of course, and then the maintenance, although you've been doing a great job on the streets. So really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think with that, we're now at staff questions. Do we have any other questions for staff? Bryce, I have one. Oh, go ahead, please, Vice President.
Bryce, what about the parking? There are concerns about cars on the, I assume on the street, and so what is your view of that?
Well, the city doesn't have a minimum parking requirement. So, but, as shown on the floor plans or included in the packet, there are garages, two-car garages, and there would be driveways, for each one of those units. So there would be, potentially 4 spaces per duplex unit if people aren't, just filling your garages things.
Yeah.
And they would also have, the ability to have the entire north side of the building occupied by parallel parking spaces. And then, if, and I don't know all the details in the Creekside HOA requirements, but if there are specific requirements in those for like where you can park, and if this development is such that those would be set requirements that would help to bring parking.
I do have one last question, Bryce. A 4-foot planting strip is in one of these standards or recommendations, and is that our city standard of 4-foot planting strip?
The minimum that we allow for street trees is 4 feet. The standard on Vocal Street is 8 feet.
Right.
So in this case, they're not, they're not really putting anything on the other side of it, if that makes sense. Like normally you would have a 4-foot planter strip and then a sidewalk, so you're very constrained.
Right.
But in this case, there's nothing stopping the growing medium, and so we were just describing the minimum that would be necessary to plant street trees.
Right, so there's additional soil for the roots to continue, there's not a hard stop to that
Because there's no
in
sidewalk.
this situation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I don't think I have any other questions, I think, but
Oh, I was just gonna add on, Ms. Jenny's request on the design exception, condition change. Design exceptions are things that are approved by the city engineer. We have very prescriptive standards and performance and design for stormwater. And so, when you're deviating from those, that requires a design exception request from the city engineer. Typically, we say that if you've received one of those, then you meet the condition of approval as you've been approved to kind of deviate from standards in some way, but I would be fine adding the language that Ms. Jenny requested to specifically state if approved by the stage.
thank you for that clarification. I believe we're now at applicant rebuttal. Oh, one more question, please.
So for the Villa Loop, new street, is that going to require landscaping on both sides of the street or just one?
Only on the north side, along the south side, they have a curb line sidewalk.
So there will not be any landscape buffer along the sidewalk where most people are walking?
Correct.
Can we add that?
You could if you chose to add that. Our recommendation was due to kind of the constraints of where you have the flat buildable land, by adding 4 feet of additional landscape strip to that, it pushes the homes back farther. The other constraint that you have when you are trying to fit services for utilities, driveway approach curb cuts, it becomes challenging to add street trees to actually fit them because they do require minimum plant area. And so when you have that many curb cuts and utility conflicts, it also can become challenging. So for those reasons, we felt it was fine to have them just along Creekside where there would be adequate front space.
I think in an effort to promote the climate and pedestrian friendly living, environments that we are trying to accomplish, having street trees along pedestrian walkways is really important.
It's now the applicant.
Just to address a couple of the questions that came up, part of the reason for not including that landscape strip that was just previously talked about is trying to maintain as much space for the golf course as possible. In order to achieve the flat spot for the road across and flat space for a single story, more accessible style age-in-place home, which is what the goal is for these units. There's a retaining wall that needs to be built on the north side of Villa Loop. And so anytime you add more space, that would be pushing into the golf course, which would mean a larger retaining wall. So part of the idea was to try and minimize any more height of retaining wall we have to do in that location. In addition, this isn't anticipated to be a really high traffic street. So there wouldn't need to be as much buffering for pedestrian safety as you would say on more traffic street where you would want that cushion between the driving aisle and the sidewalk. Lots 1 and 2, which are the lots that are all the way, these lots over here, are proposed to take access off of Creekside Drive. And so they are also planned to have the 1-story living space as the other units, but they would take access off of Creekside Drive. The reason that Villa Loop doesn't line up, the reason that the street Villa Loop doesn't line up with the Clubhouse Drive is because the property doesn't allow for the street to go there. I don't know if it's here. This is where the property line is, right here. So you can't get the street over here in order for it to line up, because you need to come you need to come perpendicular off of Creekside Drive and then do it, you just can't, you can't do it. So that's the location that was chosen as a way that you can still see the intersection, but you're not in conflict. So that was the reason. I think I've already addressed the storm issue. I'm glad that Laura was with you. I figured that was the intent, but I just wanted to make it really clear, and I appreciate your support with that, so. Okay, happy to answer any other questions.
Last round of questions here before I close the hearing.
One question on lots 1 and 2, is that parallel parking allowed on Creekside Drive on that side?
No.
I'm hearing now. Oh, that was the one thing too. It would be in the owner's interest to be able to park in their driveway or garage or on the loop, given the topography difference. I mean, if you were trying to park somewhere else, it'd be quite a hike to get up to your unit. It's not exactly convenient. So it's kind of built for them to figure out how to park in their space, if that makes sense.
All right, I had some guidance. Is there a request to hold the record open?
Yes.
Do we have one writing? So I guess next step then is to set the date.
The commission can decide to continue the hearing, which means that you could receive verbal testimony next hearing date and decide that night, or you could close the hearing and leave the written record open, generally 7/7/7. So if that's the case, we would come back on September 3rd. Accommodate 7/7/7 request.
I think that
Unless
was,
the applicant were to waive the final 7 days.
The applicant could waive their final 7 days or we could close the hearing and
Be back on the 20th.
deliberation on August 20th, so I guess it's kind
does the applicant have
of the
a
application requirements.
We would propose a 7/7/7 with the intent of waiving that final rebuttal period if there's no need for it.
And so the deliberations could be August 20th.
All right.
Motion for that? We'll just do it.
Zero title to it, so.
No, I mean for that.
all right.
It's open
Oh, yeah,
for the dates.
yeah, it's up to the planning commission to decide whether you continue the hearing or record. They suggested leaving the record open, but.
Okay, I'm gonna look to Commissioner Heller, Vice President Heller, to wing that one for us.
I move that we go with the 7/7/7.
Then we hold the record open
Oh, yes,
for
yes.
written testimony. We'll hold the record open. All right, thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Will the clerk call the roll, please? That's gonna bang then.
Commissioner Cobb? Aye. Commissioner Heller?
I,
Commissioner Rhodes? Aye. Commissioner Slager?
Aye.
Commissioner Maravilla?
Aye. All right, motion passes, and I think at this point, we close the record, is that?
We close it.
Close the hearing. Yes, please do.
Well, okay, so based on the motion, what that means is that anybody can submit written testimony for another week. So up to next Tuesday at 5 p.m. if you want to submit written testimony, or anybody else that didn't participate, so you can tell everybody. And then anyone that submits a testimony will get an email from us and we'll send the testimony out to everybody. And you get 1 week to rebut that testimony. So if you read something in that testimony that you think is inaccurate, you can rebut that. So during the second week, no new evidence. The first week, you can submit new testimony. And then we will probably reconvene here on the 20th, where the planning commission will deliberate. We'll send an email if they're not going to deliberate that night. It's up to the applicant if they want more time, and then it would be September 3rd. So if you want to find out, get on the email list. And if you submitted if you sign the sign-up sheet, you're on the email list. If you submit a testimony, you're on the email list. if you haven't done either of those, you can give your email to Bryce and we'll make sure to send you an email. So if you give your email to Bryce before you leave tonight, to make sure that you get those things. Thank you.
All right, I'm closing the public hearing. No. Closing the public hearing. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. Give everyone a moment to settle themselves.
Anybody have questions about that stuff, how that works?
Informational reports? None. I think at this point, subcommittee reports. Is there anything from the subcommittee? The wetlands group did meet a while ago. I don't remember if I reported on that, but we did. We had a good conversation and a little bit of a strategy going forward, which I'm sure at the right moment we will unveil. Yes. So let's turn to the planning administrator's report then.
Yeah, and I gave my report by email, so I'm not sure if I was going to be here. So just a reminder, we have 2 appeals coming up. So on the 20th, we have an appeal and the staff presentation. And then on the 17th, we have an appeal. And I feel like it's been a long time since we had any position. So gosh, I think that. And then, as I said in my email, hopefully the council is going to appoint up to 3 commissioners next Monday. They're definitely interviewing 3 people. And we have 3 openings. So odds are, well, I shouldn't say that if someone doesn't get it. This is really bad. But yeah, I will send out a link if you want.
And do you want to say anything about the quorum requirements and perhaps reconsider that?
Yeah, we were talking about how our rules say quorum is 5 commissioners. But generally we follow Robert's rules, and Robert's rules, Brad told me, is normally it's the majority of the appointed members. We almost didn't have a quorum tonight, and we were like, oh, well, we don't have 9, so it could be less than 5, and no, because our rules are more specific. So we were thinking maybe we would want to this fall update our bylaws to say that quorum is just the majority of the appointed members instead of specifically saying it's 5. That sounds reasonable. Staff can put that together and bring it to future agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Lisa? If not, I of course have one. So could you give us an update on how both the missing middle and the mixed use development process is going in terms of applications, anything that we're seeing in terms of challenges implementing those?
Yeah, missing middle, that's funny. I had just asked Austin for our housing numbers, and he sent it to me just a little bit ago, and I was really pleasantly surprised. So every summer, we fiscal year ends, we put together a report of all the new housing units that have been built, and we provide that to Portland State University, who does our population forecast every year. They do our estimates every year, and then they do our forecast. So in between the census years, it's PSU that tells every city how big you are, and lately they've been saying that we're bigger than Eugene. So, but we have to provide a lot of data to them, right? New building permits, because then they assume new people are coming in, annex land, that kind of stuff. And, so we have to kind of pull it all together from our system. So I got the data from that, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that in the last fiscal year, so that's from July 1st to June 30th, we approved 1,115 dwelling units overall across the city, which is quite a bit. The majority of those are multifamily units, 632. We had 357 single family detached units. For middle housing, it's 67 units, which is actually pretty good. So that could be detached townhouses, 2-family, 3-family, 4-family clusters. And we had 59 ADUs
last year. I think that might be the highest number in calendar year of ADUs that we've had, so that's good. Yeah, it seems like people are doing a lot of middle housing. We're seeing it more, I think, just new subdivisions where it's like the plan is to do duplexes or something like this. And then we're seeing some people are buying kind of larger lots, keeping the front house and building the duplex in the back, which is kind of the easiest because they can buy a duplex plan. And we allow units to be attached or detached in any configuration, and they just plot it in the back. Not doing parking a lot of the time for the new units, and then just street parking. We do have the ready-built plans for ADUs that we launched earlier this year. So we do have a plan. If you want to do a detached ADU, you can just go to our website. There's a plan that's already approved as far as engineering and all of that, and we just figure out how it fits on your lot and you can submit it with your permit. We've had a few people use it so far. And we're gonna, Eunice is working with some folks to get ready-built plans for ADU that has a garage, and then for some duplexes and ideally triplexes. And I think at the state level, they're also trying to kind of do it. So it's back. It's a lot of work. Eugene did it, and they let us just have their plans with the person that created them for Eugene. But it's actually a lot of work to go out and contact folks that design plans and explain that we want their plan, but we want it for free, but we want to let people use it and like all these things. So we're pretty excited about that. What was your other questions? I was middle housing, and then you said something else.
Mixed use, how mixed use, but, so what's the difference between a house and an ADU with a garage?
Oh, just the plans we have right now is just a little ADU, it doesn't have any garage. And a lot of people want to build a garage and put the ADU above and like one structure. Because then kind of either the parking's for the ADU or sometimes it's the garage for themselves. So spending all this money on a new garage, I might as well maybe get some rent. Absolutely, right? Yeah, the new mixed use zones, we're seeing more apartments in them than mixed use. So we consciously made the decision to allow all the uses outright and not to require ground floor commercial in our mixed use zones or our downtown. Because we added a lot of acreage in mixed use and, maybe more than can be supported by retail across the city and many cities that require it get to housing and then they have, vacant storefronts. And so we were like, this seems like a good idea. And now it seems like, a lot of the mixed use we could put out around town is mostly just going to apartments. Very nicely designed buildings because the mixed use has like, kind of urban design standards. So we're kind of fighting over that if we make the right choice there for getting housing, but obviously part of our goal is to get services into neighborhoods so that people also need to walk to. The day zoning can't fix the retail market in the world or whatever, but we're excited to see 2 new buildings just south of City Hall have broke ground. So if you drive south on Commercial, if you go that way, Hunsaker Dental, that was done in the new mixed use and 72 zoning. And they had some adjustments for their design, but originally when they came in, the parking lot in front, big building in the back, it's different. So they broke ground on that, and then another block past that, we have apartments and live work. CB2 design that is going to open things. I think the design came out really well, so we're pretty excited for that. They're actually pouring foundations. I saw yesterday. I was like, yes, I'm just out there moving dirt. So, so that's exciting.
We have a little mixed use neighborhood, not mixed use neighborhood, a mixed use development going in near our house, which is Rubens and Liberty. That was really nice.
And that's really interesting because that was done before it was zoned mixed use. So I think that was done in like a CO or CR zone or something. It's just like they just wanted to do it with the city making it. It's pretty great.
Are you getting a lot of pushback from developers on these standards?
On the housing, we're having some folks that are just wanting to build 3-story walk-up kind of garden style apartments, but in the mixed use zones. And I bought this lot and it's like in a residential area, Salem, East Salem, and here's my 3-story walk-up. That doesn't meet literally any of the design standards. And then they say, well, but your design standards are too expensive because that type of construction is, because it is, right? We're requiring be up to the street, and we require 65% windows and 14-foot ground floor and various things that once you start building that way, it doesn't make sense. 3-story, you know, more stories to get your money back, and elevators and all these different things. And so that's where we've been, I think, having some kind of disconnect from folks, because what they hear is it's mixed use, I can do apartments without a conditional use permit, yay. And then later, it's way off. That's not the way they think of it. That's the way we think of it. There's like, how many zoning adjustments can I ask? So, you know, beyond that, no, I think in the areas where people are thinking, yeah, we're gonna do an urban type development, just small tweaks, both of the ones, just like I just mentioned, south of here had some small tweaks to, you know, windows and keeping it, I think we have a standard for the whole front, 75% of the frontage or something needs to be a building and nothing else, and based on their lot configurations, you know, couldn't beat that, and, you know, they can ask for zoning adjustments, it's administrative, so. I think mostly it's been going well, if people are kind of understanding.
Sure, so just 2 last questions for you. Any problems, or are we getting pushback on the minimum density standards for planning developments?
No, not so far, usually people greatly exceed.
I remember that was a sticking point, or at least a point of controversy. We were looking at the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I know we increased it for our zone, we increased it in multifamily zones, it's not been a problem, which we didn't think it would, our analysis is that, you know. It's high end anyway, we have ranges, and then, you know, the code amendment that just came through planning commission that will go to council in September. You know, we heard the concern about the density of West Salem. And what's, I think, I guess we'll have to wait till that hearing, but we had some conversations with West Salem Neighborhood Association explaining that very, very, very low density, the density we propose is literally one house per 4,000 square foot lot. You know, it's like the same as our single family zone, so it's hard for people to visualize density if that's kind of not their wheelhouse. So it hasn't been a problem so far. We don't have a density downtown, so the housing that is much higher than we approved housing only development on the site of the old city hall. Same folks that did the apartments at the Nordstrom site, so we think that's great. Haven't broke ground yet, but they also have an option to buy a hole in the ground, hole in the ground. They also do housing, so hopefully.
And my last question is, are we finding new developers entering the market, or are we seeing current developers kind of shifting to respond to these conditions?
I think we're seeing some new folks come down from Portland and haven't been in Salem before, so it's exciting just because they generally think our standards aren't that hard, right? So if you work in, I don't think that you're work in other communities, larger communities, and you get here and that design's not hard. Oh, you don't require a ground floor to be, no. But housing there is just like blown away.
So we have a competitive advantage.
Yeah, and we are really a lot more quick, we're faster on our review times, on land use and permitting. And we have mostly administrative processes for things like adjustments now, which a lot of cities don't necessarily have. So a lot of them, we have to have a public hearing, they can request an administrative adjustment. And yeah, we really, compared to the city of Portland, we have immensely fast turnaround time for minutes, which maybe is not what you'll hear from people that work primarily in Salem, but the data actually shows you it's really fast. And then everyone that comes from Portland, it's just so easy to do things right, the best permitting process I've ever done. You know, kind of what you're used to or what your expectations are.
Well, thank you. Are there any comments for the good of the order? No, do we have anyone who'd like to make a comment? Returned.